you have to have an intellectual approach as well as a physical approach to anything that you do. And at least what you can find out about yourself when you try new things is okay, what's blocking me? How can I not, why am I not evolving the way I want to evolve? Maybe improving, but evolving. Whether, you may not improve a lot, you may not be good at it, but you mentally will evolve. And that's even more important, to realize that, oh yeah, I do have to be a beginner and I do have to start somewhere, or I have to listen to people more, whatever it is that you need. That's why it's so important to challenge yourself.
It's going to be a really neat behind the scenes.
And I was like, oh my gosh, this is so weird.
Because something always magical happens.
Wait, what? Did you just make that up? Hey, it's Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert. Listen each week as I talk with someone new. The topics are as ADD as I am, but they'll inspire you to stay curious and grow. Big thanks to our location sponsor, the UWF Historical Trust.
Hey, Curiositors. It's Chris McPeak from the Got Side Hustle Show, where I teach you how to run the side hustle of your dreams without quitting your day job. So if you're like me and you love your day job but need help either finding a side hustle that fits with creating balance with the one you have, come visit me at the Got Side Hustle Show. You're listening to Meredith for Real, the Curious Introvert. Here's your host, Meredith.
Hey, Curiositors, it's me, Meredith. You were going to laugh at me towards the end of this episode when I totally nerd out in excitement at an announcement that my guest makes. I was laughing pretty hard when I was playing this back. But if you're a loyal listener, you're no stranger to my nerdy enthusiasm. So thank you so much for, appreciating me as is. And if you're new here, I am so happy you stopped by. I started this podcast in 2019 as a project to inspire people to choose curiosity over judgment. Each guest brings a personal development opportunity along with their story so you can stay curious and grow. There's no special order to listen to episodes, so just, have a look around and hit play on whatever grabs your attention. Oh, and Happy New Year. This episode is the perfect kickoff to the new year because my guest is a highly accomplished person who not only loves to win, but who also treasures the process, or as she calls it, the evolution. And it's traditional to set goals this time of year about what we will or won't be doing. But an alternative question is, who will we evolve to be? However you evolve, I hope that you lead with curiosity and enjoy the show. My next guest's love affair with aviation began at age 10 when her father, a captain for Japan Airlines, let her take control of his DC-6. She went on to join the 7% of pilots who are women, but she didn't stop there. In 5 years, she went from private pilot's license to a spot on the U.S. Aerobatics team. Now she's a 3-time U.S. National Aerobatic Champion and the first woman to ever achieve this title. She's represented the U.S. in Olympic-level international competitions since 1986 and achieved gold, silver, and bronze medals. You can find her airplane, the Goodrich Extra 260, on display at the Smithsonian National Air and Space Museum in Washington, D.C. And when she isn't busy dazzling crowds and teaching her aerial aerobatic school, she can be found in Kenya, training bush pilots to protect Kenya's wildlife from poachers. Today, she's going to share the evolution of her career and the unique perspectives and opportunities it has awarded her. Aggressive and smooth, introvert and performer, fellow ADDer, Patty Wagstaff. I'm so happy you're here.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. As I shared with you before, my great Aunt Hazel was a part of the 99s, which was a female pilots group, and its first president was Amelia Earhart. And even though I'm not into aviation, I have a picture of great Aunt Hazel in my living room to remind me just to go for it, whatever the it is inside of me. And even for Aunt Hazel, her it changed throughout different seasons of her life. So I'm curious if you've experienced that change in seasons too, or if aviation has always been what's called to you.
Aviation is sort of my grounding. It's kind of ironic, I guess, but that's where I feel the most grounded and the most comfortable, probably because I grew up with it and I'm very comfortable with aviation people. So I think we all have these pendulums and you kind of swing off in one direction or the other. But for me, it always comes back to aviation because that's where I belong. That's where I feel comfortable.
Yeah, that is interesting that you feel grounded in aviation. I do appreciate the paradox of that, though, I will say. I love a good paradox. So you never...
to a lot of people, it seems really strange, but,
I mean, I feel very grounded in water. And so that's a paradox, too. But it's all about what speaks to you. So you didn't have a career that you were excited about prior to aviation?
I tried a lot of things, and I really did explore whether I wanted to stay in college or I even thought about medicine. I thought about, I didn't know. I tried different things, had a lot of different jobs. When I started flying, I was working in a small village in Alaska for a Native association, and had to do some work with the government for that. And so I explored a lot of things. I just wanted to experience as much as I could. But even with aviation, when I started, I didn't plan on having a career in it. I wasn't career oriented. And I wasn't brought up in an era when career was a big thing for women. It was for boys and, men, but for women, they just didn't talk about career. In fact, the word career for a woman was sort of frowned upon in a way. I remember them sort of saying, "Oh yeah, she's a career woman." Like, that's a little odd.
Like it was a derogatory term.
It's very different than women today, So I never thought about anything. I never thought I'd be doing anything as long as I've been doing it. But I just wanted to experience everything that I could in life, and have a broad range of adventures.
I feel like
of course, aviation turned out to be the best adventure.
Exactly. And I feel like you just took what's inside of me and you just said it in a beautiful sentence, because that's how I feel about life. I'm so interested in so many things. And for you, being able to find something that makes you feel grounded and gives you varied adventures and unique opportunities, I think that's honestly the gold mine,
I agree. I think it is. It's not always easy, and it requires sacrifices and whatever you do. But I think you can take a lot of careers. Let's say you're a lawyer. You can take that into a lot of different. That gives you a lot of opportunities, whether it's politics or different types of law or other things. People are going to give you opportunities because you have a degree in that, or yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think you mentioned in another interview something about your mom's mom had quite a lot of phobias, and that had some kind of impression on you about maybe the way that you decided to live your life and make decisions. Is that true?
That's really interesting. And it's probably something we should all look at, is how we're influenced by our parents and why our parents influence us in certain ways. My grandmother on my mother's side had a lot of phobias that were things like she would never ride an elevator in her whole life. She would never fly in an airplane. So when we lived overseas, she could never visit us. When there were thunderstorms, when my mother was little, she would hide in the closet with my mother, and they'd have to put anything in the house away, like scissors, anything, metallic, and other things too. And so my mother, because she was brought up like that, and she wasn't really like that, she was determined that I wouldn't be like that. And so she was almost the opposite. It's like, oh, look at this beautiful thunderstorm. Go sit by the window. I remember being 3 years old and her having me sit by a window to look at a thunderstorm. And when we flew, when I was little, she'd say, "Isn't this wonderful to be on an airplane?" Even though she was actually terrified. She told me later. Oh. But she really tried to make me brave, And it took, of course, years later, I realized it and started understanding that. So it's really interesting to me how that, how we're affected by things like that maybe not even in our parents' generation.
That's true. And that kind of, I know that you were into sports psychology, but sports psychology isn't, an incubated part of our lives. Like psychology is psychology. It's the whole person. I'm pretty sure the idea of it. Have you made any specific observations about yourself or maybe other pilots that you're training in regards to, mindset around being not just a pilot, but an aerobatic pilot?
Yeah, absolutely. That's one of the most interesting challenges of being a flight instructor or a coach. And I can almost spot the people that are going to do well. It's not always the most talented people. It's the people that actually listen. And it's not easy to listen, for example. That's just one side of, what makes somebody succeed in a sport. But, can they take a critique? Are they able to put their ego aside? How was I affected by that? There were times I was very, pugnacious and defensive when somebody told me something. And then I'd think about it later on and realize they were right, when I was younger or more inexperienced. And finding people that I really trusted and really valued their, whose opinions and I really valued was so important in my sport, because I could, there were a few people. I mean, I had to listen to a lot of people, but because everybody can give you advice, but there were a couple of people that I could go to that could say, yeah, they're right, or you should listen to them, or, give me that, the bigger picture. And that's all about putting your ego aside and realizing that no matter what stage you are, what level you are, you can always learn and, improve and grow and evolve and all that stuff. So, beginner's mind is so important.
Yes.
So, but I find having a school, an aerobatic school, that I joke with my instructors that I said, we have to be nutritionists, we have to be sports psychologists, we have to be life coaches, not just flight instructors. You have to really, sometimes our students come here for a week or 3 or 4 days, and you really have to figure out their motivations and what makes them tick. And it's fun.
That's so interesting. And I love that you said beginner's mind, because that's something that I'm interested in, because beginner's mind can feel like a burden because everything is a question. Nothing is an answer. Everything feels so out of reach and overwhelming. And yet it is the time when the most inspiration floods in. You're most receptive to meaningful mentorship. I would love to hear your thoughts on how you maintain a beginner's mind, because from what I understand in aviation, dangerous mistakes happen when you get cozy, right? When you get too...
That's exactly right. That's very perceptive. Yeah, very much so. They call it complacency. But overconfidence is also an issue. And I found that when I've made mistakes, it's more overconfidence than complacency. Like with us, with our school, we get a lot of really accomplished people, a lot of doctors and other very accomplished people. And I've even seen it in myself when I've gone into other sports where it's like, you think, okay, I'm very good at what I do and I'm at the top of my game in a certain field. And when I go into another field, can I put that aside and not have that, whether it's ego or confidence about something else? And I found it's hard to do that. A few years ago, I tried another sport, and I thought I was going to be at the top of the game right away, and it was a very difficult sport. So it was a big realization to me that just because you're good at one thing doesn't mean you're going to be, that good at the other, or it's going to take you years to get to that level. And you have to, even though you know it intellectually, but can you put that aside? It's hard to express because I don't want to say ego, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult for people, and it's a real challenge in life, and it takes practice.
So when you tried that other sport, was that intentional in order to reconnect with your beginner's mind, or was that just because you were interested in another sport? I'm curious how you keep your beginner's mind.
It was both. I think it was both. It was one, I want to be a beginner in something. I want to try something that challenges me to that level. And, in the other sense, it was just something I wanted to do, but it's all, I don't know, it's all kind of connected. You have to have an intellectual approach as well as a physical approach to anything that you do. And at least what you can find out about yourself when you try new things is okay, what's blocking me? How can I not, why am I not evolving the way I want to evolve? Maybe improving, but evolving. Whether, you may not improve a lot, you may not be good at it, but you mentally will evolve. And that's even more important, to realize that, oh yeah, I do have to be a beginner and I do have to start somewhere, or I have to listen to people more, whatever it is that you need. That's why it's so important to challenge yourself.
Yeah, the metrics are different with, when you take the physical and then the mental, the metrics are totally different. And for what for a long time was, called type A people, those high achieving, driven, give me the steps and I'll do the thing sort of folks, that mental piece can sometimes be discouraging because you're like, am I better yet? Am I better yet? Am I better yet? But I really appreciate the evolution of your career because it on paper at least, it just looks like very authentic and it looks very natural. So I would love for you to tell us how you got your pilot's license. Then what was your goal always to be on the team, the aerobatics team, or was that just part of your evolution?
Yeah, I started, I'd always planned to get my license someday. And after I moved to Alaska, it became possible. Everybody up there seems flies. I think it's 1 out of every 5 people has a license, even if they don't fly a lot. And I had no idea what I was going to do with it. I didn't have a career in mind. My sister had already decided she was going to be an airline pilot, and that's what she's been doing. She still is, and flies for a major airline. But I wasn't wired that way. So my goals kept changing. And that was something I learned a lot. I really learned about, how we evolve is, you can set a really big goal, like I'm going to get on the aerobatic team. Well, I didn't even know about aerobatics when I started taking lessons. And then it led from one thing to another. Now I'm going to get some other ratings. Now I'm going to learn how to do aerobatics. And now I'm going to try and get better. Now I'm going to fly a competition or an air show or whatever it is. And then you start there and then you're like, oh, maybe I can get on the team. And, it changes all the time. And for me, my goals are still changing. And sometimes I think if you set really big goal, you can set a really big goal, but you have to understand that there's so many little goals in between that your goals might change too. You might say, I'm going to be the best, mountain climber in the world, let's say. And, but along the way, it might take, you might go from mountains to ice climbing, or you might go from whatever, rock climbing to something else. And it may not take you in the same direction. It's like when you write a story or an article. A good friend of mine who's an editor gave me a lot of advice when I was writing a column and said, just start, because it's always going to end up differently than you envision in the first place, and that's kind of like, and it always did. I'd start with this premise and then it would take a tangent and I'm like, oh, that's what my article is going to be about. And it's been the same with my life. I really haven't known where it's going to go. I knew I wanted to be good at something. But I think that setting little goals along the way, sort of like seeing the trees, seeing the forest,
Yeah.
And that's kind of the way I looked at jumping into the business. My school business was, I can see the trees. I don't have all the details in sight. I'm just going to jump in. I didn't have like all the metrics and all the spreadsheets. I didn't have any of that. I'm just like, let's go. Let's try it. And we'll work it out as it goes. And that's kind of life in general, right?
It is.
At least that's my philosophy. I don't know how well it's worked for me, but
I mean, since I've adopted that philosophy myself, I find things really do work to support what I'm doing. And so I call it following the breadcrumbs, but it's kind of, it's the role of intuition and being flexible and fluid to change, for me personally, I'm speaking for me, to change the metrics about what I'm doing and to be fluid in that.
Hey everyone, just a quick interruption to show gratitude to our sponsors and give you some special deals.
The UWF Historical Trust. We shoot the show at the Museum of Commerce and the Pensacola Museum of History, and it's not just an amazing step back into the 18 and 1900s, but it's an event space too. And because they love creative collaborations and have spaces for all party sizes, they're pretty much the perfect venue to make your event stand out. So if you need a unique space in downtown Pensacola, take a look at historicpensacola.org. And if you want to tour one of the 12 museums, get your tickets in person so you can show the agent one of my emails and get $2 off an adult ticket. Get emails by texting REAL to 66866. It seems like no one can agree on anything nowadays, but I have found the unifier to unite us all. Mosquitoes suck. Mine were so bad, they were in my car. Have you ever tried to swat a mosquito while driving? Not advised. Insect has been great because they guarantee their work and pollinator care is always top of mind. If you live in the Florida Panhandle or the Gulf Coast of Alabama, give them a call, ensec.net.
Now back to the show.
How did you end up being a stunt pilot? Because that's an interesting turn of events in your career.
It had always been in the back of my mind that I wanted to try it, even though I'd never seen an air show or, been to one. And, I didn't know anybody that did aerobatics. And, but I liked I liked roller coasters and swings and monkey bars. I loved all that stuff. And standing on my head as a kid, I had this weird ability to read books upside down. And I could stand on my head and read a book upside down as a kid. And so I have this weird thing, where I can kind of tweak my head and see everything. Yeah. So it appealed to me from all that,
Well,
so
what about when you were a movie stunt pilot? How you're part of the, right.
Yeah. Once you get to be well known in anything, you get opportunities like that. And since I moved to Florida a number of years ago, so I didn't have the same opportunities that I did when I lived in the West Coast. But, I'd get calls for a day job where you double for a actor and have to sit in the airplane or taxi the airplane or fly the airplane and, spend some time in some movies. And it's always very fun and, exciting. And you get to do some cool flying and stuff. So, and then there's a Motion Picture Pilots Association. And there's a small group of people in that. Most of them are focused on helicopter flying. They're mostly film pilots. And then there's a couple of us that are fixed wing, also. So,
have you consulted or stunted on any movies that we might recognize more recently?
Nothing really recent. Unfortunately, it's all late 90s, early 2000s kind of movies and some, Discovery Channel stuff and things like that.
That sounds like a blast to me. I would be down for that. Yeah. How did the training the bush pilots in Kenya come about?
So that started 20 years ago. I did my first training session in 2001, and I got a request from this wonderful man who I'm still, we still work together, who is involved in international wildlife issues. And he had been working with the Kenya Wildlife Service for a while. He's American but was living in Israel at the time, and said, I read your book and I see that, you're an instructor and that you have the winters off from air shows. Would you consider coming to Kenya in the winter to train the Kenya Wildlife Service and give them recurrency training and maybe some aerobatic training? And I'd never heard of this guy, and I thought, Kenya in the winter, and I'd always wanted to go to Kenya, but I sort of pictured living in a tent, and I'm like, I don't know who this guy is. And he actually wrote me again. I didn't respond right away, and he wrote me a second letter, and I thought, what's wrong with me? Why don't I open my mind up to this? And so I met him, and one thing led to another, and I went over there with my boyfriend at the time, the first time, and it was a wonderful experience. And I've gone 10 times so far.
Wow!
And we stay in beautiful places, lodges, and fly around the country, and it's great. Been on many safaris and got to know a lot of people there, and I really think that we've helped the safety record of for the Kenya Wildlife Service pilots.
What's the difference between training a pilot in Kenya and training a pilot in St. Augustine?
There's no difference in the training. There's no difference of the quality of the pilots. It's that their mission is low-level flying, looking for poachers and injured animals, lost tourists, that kind of thing, but really focusing on poachers and identifying signs of poachers and tracks and things like that. And so they get shot at. They're in dangerous territory. There's nothing out there. It's very, very remote, operating off dirt strips. And they really have to have some different skills to stay alive in that environment. And some of the things we've taught them have been tactical, like, how to turn into the sun if somebody's shooting at you, that type of thing.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so we've done some of that. And so trying gearing their training for their environment. That's really important. And we've given aerobatic training. And, if you have an engine out and you're low level, what do you do? How do you train for it? That type of thing.
So it sounds like it's a little bit more practical, and the purposes are more, I don't know, welfare of animals and people. Yeah, for sure. I mean, we teach a lot of practical skills at the school in St. Augustine too. We want people to be able to stay out of trouble. So we start all our courses like that. Some people want to pursue more aerobatics. Some people just want a safety kind of course. So, just to switch gears a little bit, when I think about the personality profile of pilots, a pilot, I don't know that many personally, know few, but I think about drive, competitiveness, and the word that you've been using, ego. And you 100% have what I observe to be the competitiveness and the drive. But in place of ego, I just sort of sense like a connectedness about you to other people and animals. And I love the paradox of that, but I'm curious if you even know where that comes from.
I know with myself personally, I was born with a certain character and drive, and I've felt like I've had that as long as I can remember, that I've always been the same. It wasn't something that I developed later in life, but I think most of pilots, especially airshow pilots, we're a certain type of breed, and we're very much alike. We have pretty strong personalities. I'd say most of us are fairly introverted. We're most comfortable around the airport, around, airplanes and so on and so forth. And the competitiveness, the drive, the ability to make things happen. It's not easy to do. It's not easy to get into. You have to have a lot of resourcefulness, I think, is a really big part of it. So, all pilots aren't like that so much. But when you get into certain segments, whether it's firefighting pilots or airshow pilots, competition pilots, then we're kind of a breed, I think. And there've been some studies about competition pilots and, what kind of personalities we have, that kind of thing.
But your connectedness and, sense of, you have a bigger sense of the world around you, I feel. Is that typical, or do you find that you're kind of an outlier with that particular trait? Airshow pilots they're obviously a subset, of pilots in general are, because what we do involves people so much as far as, we have spectators and kids and, we're performers. So as a performer, you have to be aware of people and how they see you and your image and your reputation. And so there's a lot of that involved in that type of, performing, I would say. So it's not uncommon to be aware. What would you say to women who are in we'll call it their second act of life, who feel like their best years are behind them?
Oh no, we're always evolving, and you just can't stop. I think it's really important to not stop. And I think it's Twyla Tharp in her book makes that point. And she's maybe late 60s something, but she maybe she's older than me, but she just makes that point, especially to older people, but older women in general. Once you stop I know when I get home at night, if I'm tired, if I sit down and I don't go to a gym or I don't do what I intend to do, I'm done. I'm like, oh man, I'm just going to stay here. So you got to keep moving. You got to keep going. You got to keep all your joints oiled and your mind active. And the sharpest people I know, older people that I know that are, some of them are in their 90s now, they were smart to begin with, but they have stayed really, really active in a lot of different boards or businesses or, Bob Hoover was a really good example of that. He was a very famous pilot. He passed away just a couple of years ago. He was 93 and he was very sharp mentally. He could tell you details of anything you'd ask him. He'd give you the nth degree details of, something really esoteric, like, the screw on the side of the throttle had this instead of this. And he'd remember things in detail from 50 years ago because he stayed sharp, I think. And, when he was 90, I remember him saying to me I saw him at a show and he said, let me tell you about this new business I'm starting. I'm like, how cool is that? So he stayed sharp to the end. And I think that's key, is to not stop and keep evolving. And it's kind of exciting as you get older to, every age is a frontier. It's scary as you get older because, you don't know like what's going to happen to me. So you have to take better care of yourself. You have to do all the right things, obviously, and you have to be lucky and not hurt yourself. But the evolution of it's kind of exciting, and talking to other people that are your age and, what they're dealing with and how they deal with certain things. And it's just another evolution. It's just part of it.
I agree.
And back to high school.
I think having people in your life that accept that as a norm that is within their reach is a key ingredient. Having people in your life that haven't hung up their hat at age 39 and that don't say things like, oh, it's because I have achy bones because I'm 40 or whatever. Like, to put themselves in the category. Yeah, like they're giving up or something. So I won't lie. That's part of the reason why I really appreciate this podcast, because it gives me access to all of these fantastic people who imagine their lives differently and don't wait for permission to live that out. So I'm happy that you have been one of them today.
Thank you.
I have to ask this question, being in Pensacola, Florida, are we going to see you at the Blue Angel Air Show?
I haven't been there in a long time, but I did get booked for the Pensacola Beach Air Show.
You did? For next year?
Yeah. I'm so excited because I've never flown it. So that's in July.
Oh my gosh. We know it's in July. We know. This is like the biggest
so excited
holiday.
About it. It's going to be really fun.
Oh my gosh. Sure. I'm so excited. Yeah. Oh, I'm so happy that you're going to be a part of it.
It's like 4th of July, I think, isn't it?
It's usually a week or two after the 4th of July. The date offhand escapes me, but me and my friends, we plan it more than I plan Christmas. It is
good. Really?
We are there at 5 a.m. and we don't leave till 10 p.m. and sometimes we end up just staying the night on the beach.
Oh, how cool. Oh, really?
Yes.
That's great to hear that. So it's a real event that people look forward to.
Get ready. It's Pensacola, especially since the new jets came out, and I think everyone just has a renewed appreciation for the beach and being outdoors and celebrating the life that we have. There's just a definite sense of, you only live once kind of a thing. So I am thrilled to hear you say that. I cannot wait. I hope that I'll, be able to say hello to you. But if not, I will be
Please screaming. Get in touch with me before then so we can meet. That would be great. I really want to swim in the Gulf. I've never swum there. I've been to Pensacola and I, flown over it a million times, but I've never gotten in the water there. So I love the beach, and I love to swim, so can't wait.
It's magical. It's absolutely magical. Well, can you tell people as we close where they can stay in touch with you, and where can they stay in touch with you?
So the easiest thing is on my website. It's pattywagstaff.com, and you can read all about our school or about the air shows. And I also have a list of events that I'm just still building for next year. So I'll put Pensacola Beach on there, and that's the easiest thing. And then you can email me or whatever. And I love to hear from people. It's great. And there's all kinds of information on there. So
Perfect.
But also we're on Twitter. Instagram is Patty Aerobatics. And I think you put this on Instagram, I know you're on Instagram.
I'm on Instagram, so I'll announce the episode there and tag you.
Cool. Maybe you can tag me on there. So,
okay.
Social media is a lot of fun. So we do a lot of that. And yeah.
Great. Well, thank you again for sharing your career and your insights with us. This has been fantastic.
Thank you. This is a great podcast. I really enjoyed it, and I'm honored that you chose me.
Thanks, Patty. Thanks for listening. If you love this podcast and you want to give back, I would love it if you left a rating or review on Apple Podcasts. If you're not sure what to say, you can just share your favorite episode. And if you liked this episode in particular, you'll also like the one about how to quit putting off that great idea. It's episode 84. Stay tuned next week when I talk with an Alaskan woman who reconnected with her native heritage through a face tattoo. Talk to you then.